Hello everybody and welcome back to Spacedock. I'm Hovertanks and today I'm re-examining Hovertanks because I may have been a bit unfair to them in the past. First, let's look at a common Hovertank trope, forward-fixed weapons, and specifically one reason you might prefer them over a turret, counter-torque. When you rotate a turret one way, the hull rotates the opposite, wasting rotational energy. That's not a problem on something stuck to the ground, but a hovering thing with a big turret has to consider it. At least there is an easy solution to this minor problem by simply tying the turret rotation mechanism to the movement system so it automatically gets cancelled out. Where this style of vehicle really shows up though is in video games, because including a turret is just too similar to a normal tank. A hovertank can rotate and slip and slide all over the place, moving sideways, at angles, whatever it wants. So what games tend to do is differentiate hovertanks by making the entire vehicle the turret. No counter rotation issues at all, and utilizes the vehicle's unique attributes. The downsides are that moving the entire tank to aim requires a lot of energy and is likely to be slower than an equivalent ground vehicle with a turret just because it has to shift the whole bulk of the tank. This is certainly the case for how slowly the STRV-103 aims, but that was from the early Cold War. A casemate hovertank will aim quicker due to being far more advanced, but it still has to compete with turreted vehicles of the same tech level. Not to mention the other issues with needing to aim the entire vehicle, like obstacles around it and exposing weaker armor profiles. At least the latter one could be just not an issue in a setting due to shields. But turrets are just so absurdly practical. It seems daft to me to try to make up for the weaknesses of a particular weapon layout through endless technological justifications that can just as easily apply to a turret. So use a turret! Just remember to stick it on top of the vehicle so it can aim over things. Even if your hovertank does utilize a forward-face weapon, it doesn't have to be completely fixed in place. It could easily have a bit of traverse or elevation, and adding in a stabilizer to that would be trivial. It doesn't completely match the capabilities of a turret, but it levels the playing field a tiny bit. And the hover system again comes in clutch here because it's always going to be a smoother ride than a physical suspension system, which takes us to the other big positive of hovertanks besides maneuverability: speed. Something not touching the ground is obviously going to be encountering far less friction, which, while yes, that means it has to stop itself sliding around, it also means it's going to be able to move faster. Think of it like boats. A hydrofoil is faster than a normal boat because it touches less water, and a ground effect vehicle is faster still. There is the qualifier that this depends on the engines of the thing, but compared to a normal vehicle, even a high-speed wheeled one, a hovertank is theoretically going to be far faster. Especially over rough terrain, and even more especially over soft terrain, the sort of thing that would bog down anything else. Though I don't see a hovertank being able to overcome extreme terrain, at least not without veering into just fully becoming an aircraft, which would be kind of against the point. High speed makes them well suited to open plains, flat deserts, smooth ice packs, lunar surfaces. Wait a minute. Airless, low gravity environments might be the perfect place for hovertanks. There's no air, so no competing with aircraft. There is orbital support, but that works very differently. Wheels and tracks struggle in low-gravity environments because of lower friction. You need huge balloon wheels or massively wide tracks to get any decent traction, but a hovertank already has none of that. In fact, it would be easier for the hovertank as it has to work less hard to hover in low G. The other big issue for vehicles on a small airless body like the moon is the dust. Because there's no wind, water, or organic processes to smooth down dust particles, they're all sharp and jaggedy. That makes them particularly abrasive, and they stick to everything due to static electricity. For wheeled vehicles, and particularly tracked ones, this grindy dust is going to cause havoc on mechanical parts. Since hovering vehicles rarely touch the ground, that little problem doesn't affect them. They're not completely immune, but they will churn up way less than what tracks or wheels would. So while yes, hovertanks do have plenty of impracticalities, they certainly have their upsides thanks to their agility and likely high speed, especially in low G environments. But there is a fine line to tread between hovertank and aircraft, and care has to be taken to avoid applying technological advancements to only hovertanks to get them on equal footing with other vehicle types that don't use that tech. But just like mechs, where the same arguments often occur, the rule of cool absolutely takes precedence here. Hovertanks will always be cool, which is justification in and of itself for their existence. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our frigate and spacefighter design reference books. Alternatively, you can support us directly through YouTube by becoming a channel member. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.